I'm going to welcome to the stage, first, welcome Mr. Eugene Simon, a.k.a. Lancel Lannister from Game of Thrones.
Hey, guys. How you doing? This
Next
is all for me.
Oh, yes. Next, Miss Jessica Henwick, Nymeria Sand. And last but certainly not least, Obara Sand, Keisha Castle Hughes.
We put together the most random cast members imaginable, and this is what we came up with. So they're witnessing something special right now.
How you guys doing?
You having a good weekend?
You got 9 more weeks until season 6.
That was 9 more weeks.
Really?
Wow.
9 weeks?
Wow.
Oh my
I know. It's coming up.
And the interesting thing is that I've done panels for Game of Thrones 2 years now, and this is the only panel I've had where most of the people weren't dead. So it's really good to see 3 living characters who are going to go on.
Survivors.
Yeah. I was sat between Barris and Selmy and Meryn Trant the other day, and I kept very quiet. Very quiet. I know, it was, wasn't it? But for Meryn Trant or Barrett, you mean? Obviously, Barris and Selmy should have gone much later. Meryn Trant could have gone well, I don't know. I don't know, guys, I don't know. Anyway, I'm talking too much.
This is such a beautiful building.
It is really, really nice.
Yeah. What is it
And
a
you guys are
theatre?
such beautiful people.
Yes, it's a theater. It's a theater that was restored, 10 years ago, taken back to its former glory. So it was one of the original theaters here in town. So,
Well, thank you for all coming and saying hello to us.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, thank you.
Keep your questions stored.
so I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to open it up to you guys in the audience. So we're going to get going here. I'm going to ask Eugene the first question, because I think of all the characters on Game of Thrones, I don't think anyone's gone through a bigger transformation from who they were to who they are currently. So how is it to play that role when you start out playing the sort of put upon Lancel, and now the Lancel who's sort of taken some power, though he's taken that power through a religious cult, let's say?
Well, I mean, to go to season 5 and try to understand what exactly went on in the 2 seasons that he was away, I really had to kind of think about what the lasting message of Lancel's experiences when you saw him at the end of season 2 at Blackwater was basically that he'd been kind of cannibalized by the Lannister family. They're sort of typically supposed to be this family that, are very tight-knit, almost too tight-knit, you might say. In many ways, but they are a family who, try to look out for one another's interests, supposedly more than anyone else. But I mean, he is really the character who, up until that point, doesn't really receive any of that affection. He's very isolated, and really to kind of get from Squire Lancel to Faith Militant Lancel, it required really for me to kind of think about the parts of his story that we never really actually have got that much time to look into until season 5, such as his father. What's his relationship like with his dad? Or rather, who is his dad? What's his dad like? What is Kevin actually like as a person? And as the younger brother of someone like Tywin Lannister, you would expect him to be himself, even though he's probably a capable man, a little bit more of an underdog. And I think that Lancel tries to live up to the reputation of a family that he really can't compete with because they're so hugely immoral. So that trauma, the shame of not being able to be who you are required to be by someone in power, the embarrassment of your failure, and then suddenly this inevitable desire for revenge and retribution, which then perfectly timed is twisted by the High Sparrow. So the High Sparrow, he stops it being about revenge. He makes it about enlightenment. He makes it about rebirth. He makes it about rejoicing, about kind of evangelizing his pain and turning it into something, inverted commas, better. So and from that, you can create anything. And you've created, they have created a very, very lost and morally rather vacant soul, unfortunately. That's the short answer. I will not keep my question that answers that long, I promise.
And so where do you think Lancel's headed?
Well, I mean, I think Lancel is, you know, he's got two parts of him, which is the will of the High Sparrow, i.e. the demands of the faith. But if you were, you know, to break it down, it depends on really how much cognition he actually has. And I mean, you know, obviously we go to set every day and we do the scenes that we're given. And even as the actor, I wonder how much sort of sense of self is left, really. I like the idea there is some left. I mean, I'm not ruining anything for anyone by saying that Lancel did not die last season, so we may or may not be seeing him again, much to everyone's grief, I'm sure. But I hope that you'll start to see that there is a side to him that is still cognitive, is still there, is still in the decision-making process, and isn't, as he was in the first episode of season 5, sort of, you know, transient and disconnected and lost. There's still something there. So hopefully you'll enjoy that in season 6.
And Jessica and Keisha, I'm going to say that I am a book reader. Any book readers out there? Woo! And the sand snakes are among my favorite characters in the books. So I was very excited to see them come in last season. And so, sorry, Eugene.
It's fine.
But so when they came in, obviously you made a big splash with your very first scene. What's it like to kind of play these characters that are as tough as they are? Because they are the toughest characters, to me anyway, in the book.
It was super exciting, actually, like to come in, because I was a big, I read the books and big fan of the show, and I think, you know, these characters are very different women than most of the female characters we've seen in the show up to our arrival, and so that was super exciting. We worked quite a lot on their sisterhood, because that was like really important. They do, you know, they've grown up together and they do everything together in combat and life, and so we really wanted to like that to come across as well. And these like women that aren't in competition with each other, which is really nice, that are in fact all together and working together for the same purpose, even if they're a little bit psychotic.
Yeah, no, that was what appealed to me as well. And the process of building those relationships was really, really fun. The three of us, Keisha, Rosabelle, and I, immediately clicked, which I remember being so afraid when I got the role and knowing that I was going into a show where all the cast members know each other, and then I knew I was going to have these two girls by my side, and I thought, if we don't get on, that's potentially years of my life stuck with actors that I hate. So it was really nice when I remember we had dinner and Keisha was like fresh off how long was your plane journey?
From New Zealand, I don't know, like 5 days, it feels like it just goes on and on and on.
Bloody long. And then Rosabelle was with us and she hadn't seen Game of Thrones, so she was kind of clueless. But somehow the three of us managed to work together, the Brit, the Italian and the Kiwi.
It's like the start of a bad joke.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. A Brit, Italian, and Kiwi walk into a bar.
One has a bullwhip.
So I'm guessing that you guys never actually you guys actually work together, obviously, all the time, but have you ever worked with Eugene at any point?
I thought you might ask this question. I thought about yesterday, if anyone asked me what would happen if Lancel basically managed to bump into the Sand Snakes, and I hope you guys have a sense of humor, because I basically said it's like a conservative Mormon meeting Pussy Riot. Sorry. I hope you have a good sense of humor.
No, it's true.
It is. No, we've not worked together. I met the Sand. I'm going to call them the Sand Snakes as a collective. We did on the first night. They were. I think it was your first night.
You had just shaved your head that day, and I remember he wore his beanie throughout the whole dinner, and we were like, "What are you hiding?" And then he pulls it off, and it was like, "Oh, that's what you're hiding. Put it back on."
Yeah, it was exactly like the worst haircut.
I still haven't recovered. I have a chunk missing.
Are you serious?
Right, no, I have a chunk missing at the back of my head right there, which I've had to somehow hide. So no, I was severely sheared. I also when I cut my hair off, I realized that I hadn't known this. I have a scar, which I didn't know was there. I thought I was scar free, but I have a gash across my forehead from when I was a kid, which they said, was that a prosthetic? And I went, like, was that part of your character? I said, no, it just, life just graced me with a scar that was conveniently located.
How did you get the scar?
I think I was playing in a barn and I cracked my head open on the roof.
Ow.
I have a scar on my forehead from the same thing. I fell down the stairs.
We should shave your hair off.
No, you can. The thing is, you
Join
can't.
the faith, guys. Should we get the sand snakes in the faith? That'd be great,
Can
wouldn't
you
it?
imagine?
The most
Oh
exotic
my
form,
God,
the most
sand
exotic
in the
fourth of militarism. That'd be great.
No,
Anyway.
we're so morally all over the place. We could not join the faith militant. It's
Morally
just
ambiguous, one might say.
It's the answer.
So how have you felt about, because this show, you can look out of this room and see this show has quite a cult following now, as well as its mainstream following, which here in the U.S. it's huge. It's a huge show. And I'm guessing all around the world it's a huge show.
except Belfast, where we film.
No one cares there, huh?
You can go on Segway. There's a car park right next to where we film, and you can go on Segways and have Segway classes. And we're walking past in our costume. No one's batting an eyelid. No one looks over. I think it was only this last season that it felt like it had started to infiltrate the public awareness because they started putting up gates. Because before it was just open, you could see right through.
And that was more to do, I think, with storylines because they surpassed the books.
Right.
And so, I think they were, for the first time, usually the security was actually really low, which was quite surprising. You just turn up and it's just like one guy.
Just wave you in,
Yeah, like, hey, morning.
Yeah, you look like an actor. Go on.
Exactly.
What's the general consensus about the fact that the show has surpassed the books? Are you guys excited? Because it adds a new layer.
It's different now.
different.
Yeah, it's like a whole different medium now.
Oh, some unhappy people.
Okay, so one at a time. We're going to go from left to right.
No, it's interesting.
And you're going to give me full answers. I'm going to be here for a long time. Close the doors.
I cannot wait to see the public reaction to the new season. I'm really interested.
I cannot wait to see the new season. How about you guys? But you're all now part of something that has that cult audience as well. And of course, Keisha, you have already been a part of something that was a huge cult, although it's more like a religion. And now, Jessica, you have joined that one as well.
She's joined my religion.
And so, how are Star Wars fans and Game of Thrones fans different?
I think there's quite a bit of crossover for me, certainly.
Yeah.
When people come up to me, they usually know the two together. The only thing is that we get a lot of fan art for Game of Thrones, but I've suddenly had a sudden surge in fan fiction for Star Wars because people really like the idea about my character getting with Rey. And so I've been sent so much lesbian fan fiction. It's great. It's great. But surprisingly, the Sand Snakes, 3 barely dressed women, I never
In
get...
leather with whips.
Yeah, and I never get anything. I never get anything weird.
We thought about it. We would joke with David and Dan actually and be like, there's so much Game of Thrones merchandise now, you can buy anything Game of Thrones themed. And we were like, it was like the one area they hadn't entered. It was like the sex industry. It was like with the Sand Snakes.
Oh my
now
gosh,
it's like
can
a
you
whole
imagine?
line of.
I get absolutely no lesbian fan mail. I don't know why.
It's only a matter of time.
Oh, it is. Well, about bloody time.
Would anyone buy Game of Thrones sex toys? Well done, you, for putting up your hands.
Exactly.
And Eugene, for you were on a show that was shown here on Nickelodeon in the U.S., House of Anubis, and was that interesting for you to make that transition from sort of that very clean-cut sort of thing to being this sort of, like as we talked about, the very put-upon Lancel, and now into the very adult role of the faith militant Lancel. So was that sort of an interesting transition, and how did those fans that followed you from that show react?
Well, for me, the most interesting part of it was how symbiotic the roles seemed to come along at that perfectly right time. So with Game of Thrones, House of Anubis is a very different show for those that know. It's a Nickelodeon show. It's based in a British boarding school, 3 years, and we shot that between Liverpool and Belfast. So I was the closest town I could have been to film Game of Thrones and this show back to back. I found out that I got both of these roles on the same day And on the same day, it was also my birthday.
Oh my god.
It's my 18th birthday, so I don't ever forget my 18th birthday. It was a big one. And this is what happened. Very briefly, Game of Thrones said yes, Nickelodeon said yes, and Nickelodeon got back to me and said, listen, we understand that you might have a nude scene in Game of Thrones. And I said, how did you find out? And I said, yes, I do. And they said, well, it's us or them. I'm telling you now, it's 3 years later. And I said, well, it's them, I'm afraid. It's Game of Thrones, I'm going to have to go with them. And then they got back and said, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. So call their bluff is my advice to any young aspiring actors here.
What the hell were Nickelodeon thinking?
Yeah.
Like-
Anyway, Yoren was also in House of Anubis with me. Remember Yoren from seasons 1 and 2? Remember the Night's Watch? He's great. The weird thing about it was I played young Lancel when I was 18 years old. I was a lot younger psychologically, and so the natural youth, the natural naivety, the natural ignorance that goes with the territory of being Squire Lancel was I would just say pretty organic. There wasn't really need to put on much of a costume psychologically. It was pretty much, I was there. Then when it came to season 2, the same thing. I was just going into the beginning of adulthood, so I was sort of slightly understanding what it is to be an adult, but not quite there yet. Kind of like Night Lancel. I was sort of trying to be holding up to my responsibilities, but not really able to. And then when it came to season 5, I was ready to rock and roll. And I hope I did, and so that was the most bizarre part of it. Every year seemed to almost be prepared for my own kind of development, really.
I think it's a massive credit to the casting as well, because that's the general consensus across the board, is that every actor has like a real essence of that character, and the writing, they really kind of write to who you are as a person, which is a real privilege, like it makes your job a lot easier when you're exploring parts of like behavior that you understand.
It was funny actually when I don't know if you recall the scene where Lancel is begging. I hope you do. The scene where Lancel is begging in front of Tyrion, when he basically says that I'm going to start blackmailing you. Well, when we shot that scene, I remember looking back at that and going, I wonder if Lancel would be having that emotive. But the thing is that Lancel at the time, he wasn't very bright. He's just not a very bright individual, he's just trying to keep up. So when it came to season 5, it was all the better that I knew from the books that there was this really quite gutturally awful, monstrous revelation that he has, which I hope made his reveal in season 5 that much more kind of bizarre and confusing. I think people thought I'd been recast, which was great, by the way.
Wow.
It was such a nice feeling to know that they didn't know who he was. That was the desired intention. So I'm lucky, you might say.
Okay, and before I open it up to the audience for questions, I have one question. Since you are all still alive currently in Game of Thrones, which we know is a temporary situation
Snow's
for
dead.
most characters.
I know that's your question. He's dead.
So, I want to know who do you want to kill you and how do you want to die?
I really like that question. I really enjoy
Yeah.
it. You start.
I've always said that I'd quite like Obara to go out like food poisoning, because she's such a badass. Like she just eat something bad.
She's been eating oysters.
She eats something bland.
You're
and it's
asking
like,
for trouble. You've been eating oysters since we got here.
Exactly. Just be like the oysters
She
here
has
are
a really rough
amazing.
night in Planky Town.
Yeah, exactly.
I would like Nim to be mauled to death by Sir Pounce. I think that's the way to go.
Ooh, wow. No, I would like Lancel. I would love Lancel to be in full faith armor. That'd be cool. I'd like to see what the faith armor looks like, and I'd like him to die on a crusade. I'd like him to die spreading the faith. I want him to see Melisandre, and I want him to beeline his way at her. That would be fantastic. And I don't know where it goes from there. I don't know, but I want Lancel to beeline his way for Melisandre and chop off that heretic's red head. So that would be ideal.
All right, we have mics on both sides of the rooms in the aisles. If anybody wants to come up and start asking some questions, I know you guys have some, so please form some lines. So you've been eating oysters since you've been here, Keisha?
Mm-hmm. I have.
Yes. We went to Atlas.
I've had some amazing food while I've been here.
Yeah.
I really like it here. We were saying we wish it was in summertime. I'm sure it's
We
really
had more
pretty,
time. We go to
It's
the
a really
beach and
pretty
see more of
town.
the state.
Yeah.
We should.
I think we're going to start over here. Sir?
First of all, thank you for coming, and please do come back in the summer. So because this coming season is uncharted territory for book readers, and there's probably a lot of things, you could maybe like say something that would make no sense right now, but after we've seen the season, like, last season, Hard Home, if someone said, hey, Hard Home, keep an eye out, that'd be really cool. Is there any hints you can give us that would make no sense now, but would be cool to know?
A bar is a bitch.
I don't think that's a big revelation. Jon Snow's dead.
I don't want to get you in trouble, so...
No. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to dodge a bullet whilst also giving you something.
Is that the clue?
Yeah, that's it. Oh no.
Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones.
This is a perfect one. Fire, lots of it.
All right.
Da 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 da.
All right, we're going to go.
I promise you that's loaded.
And we're going to go over to this side and take this lady's question.
Hi, this is more for Jessica and Keisha. You guys had to learn how to use weapons that the Sand Snakes specialized in.
Yeah.
What type of training and how long did it take y'all to get comfortable using those to film the scenes?
We all pretty much started like as soon as we were cast, and they scheduled it so that we had quite a bit of time until we really needed. So we were really comfortable with our weapons. The biggest challenge we found was the choreography of actually using the weapons together
In tandem.
Because in tandem.
Because they're all like different ranges.
Yeah, there's a big difference between, like when you've got a spear and you've got this much space, but it's very different when you've got like someone there with 2 daggers and a bullwhip coming at you as well. So that was probably the hardest part for me anyway.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I particularly like the fact that Jerome Flynn and Nikolai really underestimated us. Like, we were having rehearsals and they said, they scheduled several rehearsals, and Nikolai and Jerome were like, we'll come in like 1 hour before we film, it'll be fine. And we get there and they hear the bullwhip and it's literally like, and I hit Nikolai and I think I scarred him on his ankle. And he cried like a little girl.
Did you actually hit him?
I genuinely hit him. He was like, go for it, come at me, like don't hold back. And I said, are you sure?
Oh my God, I'm glad you hurt someone. I really hurt the high septon by accident.
Oh, what happened?
I Wolverined him. Lancel has very long nails for season 5, and I had to pick him up. And I was so incensed with zealotry that my nails were very, very long, and I had blood, and I basically rib caged him. I didn't realize I was doing it, and this was on the last day, and I looked down, and I said, what? And lifted up his arm. I said, Paul, what's that? What is going on with your? Who? And I said, who did this? Who did this? Because he was on his knees when we went into the brothel to get him, and they looked at my hands, and I'd garroted him like a fillet.
Oh my God!
Because my nails were like razors, so I'm glad you hurt someone too.
Eugene, you're just
No, dude, we're not on the same level.
I don't
That's
need
disgusting.
daggers. I don't need daggers. I don't
Whoa,
need
I
whips.
can
I need
see
these,
every
man.
bit of
I
it.
need these.
That's gross. I have such a weird thing about nails.
It's
like
gross.
I can't.
It's gross, true, and it happened.
Oh man! Did we have any other incidents?
You
Rosie stabbed
you
Jerome.
got Rosie really good. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
I got Rosie. Oh, I got
Rosie
her good.
stabbed Jerome. I got Nikolai. Nikolai nearly took my head off though. Like that's the other thing is that I'm not a very tall, big person, and Nikolai is like statuesque, 6-foot Danish man, and so the height difference of us fighting was quite funny, and so You know, it's just like he swings his sword. It's like, well, it feels like 5 feet before, like, I'm all the way down here.
No, don't hurt me.
Exactly.
Come at me.
So it got a little dangerous sometimes.
I would just like to establish that I am not 6 foot because everyone always seems to think that I'm massive because Keisha and Rosabelle are tiny. It's not that I'm massive, it's that they're tiny. Literally, someone came up to me and was like, "You're like the Kim of the Kardashians. Like, you're the really tall one." But I'm not. I'm normal.
The audience and I were gossiping about that just before you came on, actually, so let's stop gossiping, shall we? Let it rest.
We've gone on the longest tangent. I'm so sorry. What was your question? Did we answer it? Okay, good.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, let's keep them short now. Sorry.
Over here.
Have you ever been rickrolled?
Never gonna give you
What was the
up,
question?
Never gonna get you down.
Have you ever been rickrolled?
And desert you. Yeah, that's what it is. It's when someone says, "Oh, that's funny. Here's a cool link about the same thing," and then they just send you "Never gonna give you up."
Yes, I have.
Oh, that's
Yes.
why someone came and you
I
come and
remember
asked me that today if I knew the song. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Have
happened
you ever
before.
been rickrolled?
No.
No one rickrolls Keisha on pain of death. You're the British person. Any other Brits here? Oh, yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, so you've obviously done other stuff. Do you have a preference for what you filmed, like Game of Thrones, Star Wars? Do you have a favorite?
I don't know if I feel like every role that I'm like doing at the time is always my favorite.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, and often it's because like you attract the work that is like very much kind of
It's what Eugene was
like,
talking
it's like
about.
what Eugene was saying, it's like where you are in your life. So like these roles that I've played over the years that I don't think I'd be able to do now because I was in a very different space. But I know it's like a great job. Like I love what I do, and you get to learn like kind of bizarre tidbits of lots of things. And I don't know many other kind of jobs where you take like intensive training courses and
Keisha knows how to
weird
ride
jobs.
whales.
Yeah, like I know how to ride whales. Like I like live in space. Like there's lots of like I don't know if I ever would have done like wushu training in my life had it not been for playing Obara. And so that's pretty cool. Like you learn like just weird. You have like a bag of like weird party tricks.
Yeah, we're such actors are weirdos.
Yeah, they're like the worst.
We're so odd.
You tend to run on the adrenaline of the scene that you're doing at the time. So when you
Yeah.
do it, depending on what you're doing, in my case, whether it's a nutbag religious zealot, or it's a young up-and-coming squire, or it's a preppy schoolboy in a boarding school, or if it's a US soccer player stranded on an island, you tend to just run on, you fueled on the adrenaline of the time. And every scene that you tend to do, obviously, you do prefer it in some ways, but you're still just inhabiting that moment, and you have to enjoy it. Really, you've got to push yourself to enjoy it. And I would probably say I don't really look at one moment. So far of my work and go, oh God, I wish I'd been doing the other bit of work at that time instead. Because as luckily we've agreed, it generally comes fairly organically. So no, I don't think so. In full.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Over here, sir.
Okay, guys. If you could choose who you would want to see on the Iron Throne, being fans and part of the show, who would you choose to sit on the Iron Throne?
Bron. I really
I think it's
like
better.
Bron.
I think just get rid of the throne.
Yeah, I agree.
The throne. It's funny. The throne has sort of more and more. It looks as a sort of fairly translucent icon. More and more, you don't really kind of appreciate its real value. You sort of appreciate how utterly chaotic it is.
It's just a chair, guys. It's just a chair.
And it's not even that comfortable.
Yeah,
What
it's
it-
not.
what
Like I sat on it once. I was like-
What it represents is basically chaos. What it used to represent was ultimate, supreme, Aegon the Conqueror power. But now it's Joffrey's shredded remains burnt in the ash. So it's if someone did go on it, I'd want it to be someone who had a sense of humor. And
Who would you like to see on the throne?
Well, if you were to revise it and do something like, who do you think would bring order to the chaos? Is more of the question I'm trying to ask. Who would you want to see actually bring the Iron Throne back to this is the point that rules the kingdom?
I would say Sansa would probably be the best emissary for it.
Really?
Yeah, no. No. No, I know, but I think she's the right figure to bring peace, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say I'd have to say Daenerys personally. I think she can do it.
I don't think so.
I'd rather see Tyrion.
Oh, yeah, Tyrion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mountain. Let's put him on.
I think the White Walker should be on. I think
Sir Pounce.
Sir fucking Pounce.
All right,
There aren't any kids here, are there?
Oh,
Yeah.
There probably are.
You all knew. Oh, there is a kid. Sorry.
really?
Okay, fine. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll whisper. Don't look. Show you.
Why are we whispering? They can still hear us. We have microphones.
Cover your ears. Anyway, sorry.
Go over here.
Hi.
Hiya.
If you could have Game of Thrones end your way, how would you want it to end?
Posted up on the beach in dawn. Drinking some red wine.
I would want Daenerys' 3 dragons to be given to the 3 Sand Snakes, probably.
To play with.
Just for fun, just for shits and giggles, because they
toys.
should not be allowed anywhere near dragons, obviously. I think that's what I'd want.
That'd be so much fun.
I'd like to see. I've forgotten his name. Alfie Allen. Theon. No matter what happens, I'd like to see Theon survive in some capacity. I really like that character. Well, you poor guy, he's been through so much.
It's a real rough time, man.
It's had a real rough time.
It's getting hard to watch
And
that
I mean,
storyline.
what he did was so awful. But what he went through was I mean, God knows it was awful too. And I think that it would be. I'd like to see. We all reminisce. I mean, I don't, but I know you do reminisce of the time when the Starks were whole. And, the idea of seeing that family kind of reunited in some sense. But I'd want Theon to sort of be there in some way because, it'd be a nice message that no matter what you do, you can be ultimately forgiven, even if it is killing your own brother. But we've all done that in this show. So I'd like him to survive no matter what, really. You're welcome.
Worries, thank you.
Over here, sir.
Thank you all so much for coming to the
Thank you
con.
for having
It's
us.
cool. Couple questions, actually. If you could all just kind of describe learning how to use weaponry on the show and maybe a little side story about that, each of you. And I wanted to ask Jessica if she could tell us a little more about maybe what we can see maybe going forward with Star Wars as an X-Wing pilot.
In terms of the...
I mean, luckily you'll say something that can be...
honestly, I don't even know. I don't even know. Everything is really hush-hush at the moment, so I can't say much about that, I'm afraid. In terms of the weapons on the show, my main weapon is a bullwhip, an 8-foot bullwhip. And when we're filming, I have the one which is for close-ups, which is really heavy. It's a kangaroo skin bullwhip, and it's got a bronze handle. And then I have the other one, which is sort of, it's much lighter, and the handle's plastic. The only interesting thing I can possibly say is that Nymeria is right-handed, as am I. So by the end of filming, I had massive guns on this side, and this was just like nothing. So that was kind of weird and embarrassing, but ultimately satisfying.
When we were, I don't know if anyone's ever heard like a bullwhip crack, but it's like really, really loud.
It's like a gunshot.
It's like a gunshot, yeah. And so one of the exercises like the stunt team had us do was Jess would have to like crack the bullwhip kind of like consistently like over the day while we were rehearsing in the stunt tents so that Rosie and I would get used to the sound and the sound would almost become soothing because you couldn't have like these badass like sisters and then like every time she'd crack the whip, like the first like few weeks, like Rosie and I'd be like, because it's terrifying, you know, and sometimes it would be like right there next to you, and so like that was a big thing, like just like getting used to that sound.
But I remember when we were filming, when we were training, they said to me, you will never, I don't know if you guys remember, but our introduction scene, it's the guy buried up to his head in the sand, and he's got a bucket, and there's scorpions, and then there's me with the whip. And they said, oh, we're going to film that. That's your first day of filming. You will never, ever use that full whip with the actor there, with the scorpions there. And of course...
We had real scorpions and horses on the beach. It was like...
Of bloody course. What happens? I turn up, and there's a scorpion handler, and he's like, please don't kill my scorpions. They're like my babies.
And he loved these scorpions.
The actor is buried up to his head. They have a bucket, and they say, here's the bullwhip, and they bring out riot shields to protect the cameras, and they say, you have like 4 takes before the chances are statistically you're going to kill one of the scorpions. So get it in 4 takes, good to go.
So that never mind the actor's head, by the way. Like, just go for your life. Like, he'll be fine. He's just super happy to be on the show. This is a great, like, really, like, big deal for Gary. And, like, he's like the nice, you know, and this is like, and he's like, well, I don't know if I can say no because I'm, like, buried
already
in the
signed
sand.
my contract.
Yeah.
But it's terrifying because it will blind you. It will take your eye out. The reason why it makes that sound is because it's breaking the sound barrier. So that is how fast it is. And I had a bit of trouble in that Rosabelle wasn't wearing her glasses, and not to blame her, I was being too close to her one day when we were training. I think it was our first week, and I hit her just here, and it went bright. She, immediately, tears flooded to her eyes. It went bright red. I mean, thankfully she's fine, but I thought, oh, just 2 inches higher, and I could have blinded her. It was an awful moment. Just that guttural, like, what did I just do?
Mine's more of a broad story, and I'll keep it brief. In season 2, when we did the Siege of Blackwater, there were 200 extras that were assembled for night shoots for 5 days, and we had them on a beach up in a huge quarry that had a natural lake in the middle of it. So what we did is we set fire to the beach, and in order to get the flames from the arrows that had come across, we had people throwing stones from the rooftop from the entire battlement, one of which I took to the head as we were coming out with the hound. And we were basically, as a Lannister sortie, demanded to run down a hill. I mean, not getting the same equivalent to where I am now, to this gentleman at the front, this height. We literally had to leg it down at one another on a hill and dive onto one another. All 200, this room of extras, all of you, having a choreographed fight with cudgels, axes, swords, Baratheons, Lannisters, down a hill. You meet in the middle, and you don't relent. You just barge into one another, and you have a brawl, basically. And we brawled for 5 days in the pouring rain, surrounded by fire, covered in fake blood.
So much fun.
It was until poor Peter Dinklage, when he did his scene to rally, he did his speech to rally, it's just before we do come out. It had been raining solidly, as it does in sunny Belfast, and then it stopped on the last day when he had to do his speech. So we had to pretend it was raining. Do you know what they did? They got a fire hose and they put it into the naturally formed lake, which is minus 2 degrees. It doesn't freeze because it's full of salt, and they sprayed it onto us. So everyone, just like the armor against armor shaking with cold. Because it was just so unbearable. So we were exhausted by the end of it. 5 days of fighting. It was
We
intense.
had the exact opposite, in that we were in leather and we were in Spain, and it was ridiculously hot, and we were just covered in sweat. We had the exact opposite of your experience.
You Southerners.
It was really hard in the Alcazar in Seville.
And there was like no coffee, and we couldn't even like go out in the day. It was awful. Oh my god. My bullwhip was like 8 feet long, and then I had to reel it in. This guy wouldn't do it for me. Oh my god.
All right,
This guy comes along with a thing on his head. And
Shut up,
Who the hell are
Eugene.
you?
We're gonna go over here.
Hi, how y'all doing? My question's more for Eugene.
Oh dear God.
I mean, okay, Peter Dinklage. I mean, small man, huge persona.
Yeah.
How was that? Just like the first time that you were standing in front of the camera and having that experience of filming with him. I'm sure that had to be nerve-wracking.
It was nerve-wracking. As I mentioned when I talked about the Lancel at that time when we were working together, the natural scene required me to be nervous, so it was perfect. It was perfect. The scene perfectly catered to my needs. Because I needed to be going into that room not wanting to see, as my character calls him, the imp. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to see this. And I know that, and rather like Peter has a huge persona, Lancel knows that Tyrion is highly adept at manipulating your opinion and what you want him to do for you. He knows that. So when we opened the door and I looked at him, the emotion that I was feeling was perfectly expressed in the way the scene was written. So it was designed, it was made to be, and it was perfect. And and the great thing about Peter is this is merely down to his performance. When he looks at you and he's doing a scene with you, the character in itself is so kind of, he can at times be so nonchalantic. He's very charming, but so kind of, and particularly with me, he opened the door and I was stood there like a kind of, looking like a lemon, not wanting to talk to him, and he literally just went, he opened the door and he just went, and that was it, and we were good. Because he looks you in the eye, and he's really just it doesn't feel like he's ever reading his lines with you. It doesn't feel like it came from a script. So you're comfortable. You're cool as a cucumber. And I was very lucky with that. I'd been rehearsing that scene for about a week. I mean, the lines were so in my head that I still remember the whole scene off the top of my head now because I was so terrified. He's an extraordinary individual. He's an amazing actor. He's incredibly funny. He loves the honey badger clip on YouTube. I was with him and Jack Gleason and we were filming, and he goes, "The honey badger, is that a snake? Oh my god!" And we were literally in this doing this fight scene. We'd go off to our green room and we just had a laugh about that YouTube clip. He's wonderful. There's nothing else to be said for it. He's great. Thanks for the question.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Cheers, we got about 3 minutes left, so we'll try to go through these 2 questions over here.
Okay. Hi. I was just wondering if you guys could pick any other character to play on Game of Thrones, who would you pick to play?
Sir Pounce.
So that's a good one.
Still going, guys.
Yeah, I'm just happy I just got one to play, really. Like, I really love playing Obara.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine myself. It's all that's the thing. Like it's so perfectly cast. Like I can't imagine anyone who would need to be played by someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fun storylines for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I auditioned for Joffrey at first, but I got Lancel, and I was much more. I mean, it's not a question of how long you survive; it's a question of who you're lucky enough to play. And really, I'm very, very lucky to play Lancel because it did something. It served me as well. To know that, as you very kindly said, that you have the possibility of making a transformation physically like that. It was kind of it was nice. It's a shot in the arm. It makes you feel good. So. If I had to, if you twisted my arm, I'd say, again, Theon. If I was older, I really liked Varys. No, Varys? What am I talking about? Viserys. I really liked Viserys in season 1. I thought he was great. Harry Lloyd did a great job with him.
Okay, my question is, because you spend so much time on location, and as watchers, we get very involved not only in your acting and your fine jobs, but in the location. We fall in love with where you are. So you spend time there. If we were ever to visit your location, you said no one ever goes to Belfast. What has been your most memorable memory, or what's your favorite bar / cafe /
in Belfast or any of our locations?
When you're on location and filming, because we fall in love and want to go there. Books and movies and TV make us want to visit.
I don't know, Belfast, I like it. It's a great city, but I'm from New Zealand, so it feels very similar, it's a very similar place. We it's pretty grey and rainy, and everyone likes to drink beer at all times of the day. So I fit in very easily there. There's a great restaurant called Fish in Belfast that I love.
It had to be called Fish. Fish.
Fish. It's called Fish. Yeah. It's a super cool place actually to visit.
Yeah, and in terms of Spain, one of our favorite things was just to go tapas hopping, and so you have to be there at a certain time, and you just have a couple of plates here and a couple of plates there, and you just keep going for as long as you can until you pass out.
We've got so many. My favorite memory is very specific. When I first got to Belfast, I think Mumford and Sons had just become really big.
Oh my
and
gosh, that was ages ago.
I know, I'm so old. And I was 18, and I remember that I would walk down the streets of Belfast listening to Winter Winds by Mumford and Sons. So on routine, whenever I get back to Belfast and I'm walking down towards the City Hall, I listen to that song, and I do cry. I do, because it's been so long. I've been going to Belfast. I've been walking down those streets for that same purpose for 5 years, and I love that feeling because it returns back to you. It's a small story.
We were talking today about the Belfast Christmas markets, because the little market up here at the top of the main street. It's very similar to that, but it's at Christmas time, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's such a gorgeous time of year there. It's not too freezing yet, and it's I have good memories of being all snuggled up and walking around these very sweet little markets and drinking mulled wine and eating the best potatoes I've ever eaten.
The spuds.
Die for those potatoes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's all we have time for, unfortunately.
Oh, no, the one more question.
Sorry.
We can do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Is it quick? Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Ask
Thank
that
you.
question.
I just wanted to know what each of your favorite characters were from the show and why.
Consistently, I've always loved Arya. From you had kind of ebb and flow. I've ebbed and flowed with lots of characters, but I've loved her from the start and still do. I like watching her, and I kind of like what she's up to at the moment too. So,
I agree. I was a big fan of Littlefinger in season 1, and then when he betrayed everyone, I hated him with a passion. So but yeah, in terms of consistency, I've been on the Arya train for a while.
Favorite character, best person in the game is Roose Bolton, definitely.
What?
Definitely.
A Lannister shows his true colours right there.
He's Iwan's a great actor, but I really liked Theon, but Viserys in season 1 was so good because he was the perfect. I think he was a really, really, really good embodiment of sort of Targaryen insanity.
I also really liked Khal Drogo.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
You had to go there. No, I thought Viserys was great. He was just that as I think they call it in the book. He was tainted. That perfect little bit of taint. That ambition that is so blind and frothing at the mouth, like a dog with rabies. He just could not understand why people were not able to give him what he wanted, and he was spoilt. But then obviously he was also, just before his fantastic death, he was almost sweet. Remember, just before he died, there's that moment where she goes, "Okay, we'll do it. You can have an army. Here you go." And he relents, and he goes, "Thank you," because he just really wants something, and he's terrified of being thought to be small and to be the weak one in the Targaryen family. So I like to see flaws in characters like that.
Thank you for your question, though.
That's the end of our panel. Please thank our guests for coming.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Pensacon.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.